Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another team training for the Oklahoma Housing Needs Assessment. Today, we're going to be talking about census data. The census probably going to be our greatest source of raw data for this project. So I wanted to spend a little time talking about it, and in particular, demonstrating how you can search and download census data for the project. So let's go ahead and get started. First, like most of our lessons, this one, fits into our prototype model flowchart, where we're going to talk about variable data, in particular data from the Census Bureau. So we're not going to talk about HUD or other sources in this lesson, but we might in future lessons. So what is the census? What is the census and the Census Bureau do? So the census was actually created in 1790 by the Congress of the United States, and it's in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, that there'll be a count every 10 years on the decadal year, right? So, 2010, 2020, 2030. And the purpose is to count the population of the United States, or at least that was the original intent. And that number of people, particularly the number of people in each state, is used to apportion representation. So the number of representatives each state gets in the House of Representatives, and to allocate funding. And that has grown to include not just states, but all the different sort of census divisions, that might be used for allocating funds to cities, for city programs, for allocating funds, or making available funds to different groups, and for apportioning, state legislatures, apportioning city councils, school boards, etc. The Census Bureau, which conducts the census, is now part of the Department of Commerce. So since it's part of the commerce function, the Census Bureau is very interested in economic indicators, and they collect all sorts of demographic and economic indicators, not just doing a count anymore. So their data is, probably the highest quality and the most used data in this area. A lot of other data is dependent on using census data, either directly or as a ways to validate their existing data sets. So the Census Bureau has a number of programs. This is not an exhaustive list, but the ones we're going to be mainly talking about today are the decennial census and the American Community Survey. The decennial census is the count that takes place every 10 years, and it is meant to be a complete count. It is not an estimate. It is supposed to count every single person. So it is the most complete set of data that we can get. The decennial census only measures, there's only a limited amount of questions, but it includes how many people in your household, the people's ages, their sexes, their race and ethnicity, and something about the household itself, where it's located, of course, how many, whether it's an owner, renter, occupied unit, urban, rural, those sorts of things are covered in the decennial census. But a lot of the other data, economic data, educational data, things like that are not. Those are covered in the American Community Survey, and the American Community Survey is conducted annually. Every year, there's an American Community Survey. But it is a survey where the population is sampled. It's not a complete count like the census. So what you get is an estimate. And you'll see that when we look at it, the data, it has a margin of error, plus or minus, right? So there's a difference there. The community survey only samples a certain number of people, So you can only use it for certain levels of census geography. So the decennial census will provide you data all the way down to the block level, but the American Community Survey usually stops at the tract level. Sometimes they might go to the block group level in between, but most of the time it's the tract level. So you can't get as fine a grain analysis. The data is collected annually, but they aggregate it. They used to do 1, 3, and 5 year aggregate estimates. I think they've pretty much sort of settled on the 1 and the 5. I don't see too much of the 3-year aggregations going on anymore. But what they try to do is combine the data statistically from the last 5 American Community Surveys and putting that together in one. And so that gives you lower error, but of course the data goes back farther, so it's not as up to date. So the American Community Survey is the most up-to-date data, but it has errors in it and it has limitations on how fine-grained the analysis is geographically. So we'll be looking at some data from both of those, the decennial census and the community survey. Some of these other programs we may use data from, and I selected the ones that are listed on your screen here, and I'm going to read them all, but we may use them. So population projections, are important because it may help us predict or forecast into the future. I think, a lot of the economic things like workforce indicators and housing things from the housing survey are very much of interest to us as well. Okay, so that's a little introduction on the census and the census programs. So now I'm going to switch my screen share here, and we're going to go over to the census website so I can demonstrate for you how to search for and get some data. And the site I'm on is something called data.census.gov. Okay, so what you might want to do is pull that up on your browser and work along with me. If I get going too fast or if I lose you, you can always hit pause on the video and go back. But what I thought we'd do is just see if we can search for some data, download it, and demonstrate what you get. Okay, so this is the main data portal, and you can just type something in here and see what you get, and it will give you maps, it'll give you tables. But what I find is I like to use this advanced search feature, which is right here underneath the search bar. So I'm going to click that. And you get an interface that looks kind of like this. And over on the left, you can create a search using search filters. Okay, so this first demonstration, I'm going to try to find the population from the last decennial census in Oklahoma for every census block. Now, the 2020 census, even though that was the last count that was done, the information has not been released. The only information for that census that has been released is the reapportioning data. So we could actually access that, but I'm going to go back to the 2010, which is the last one where we have all the complete data. I'm going to go to 2010 decennial census, try to get the population for all of the census blocks in Oklahoma. So to do that, I'm going to build a search query using filters. And, I'm going to start with geography here. And you can see here are the most commonly used geography. You can get all the different geographies, but, there's block right there. So we're going to select that. Then it says, okay, what state do you want? Well, we want Oklahoma. And now, I could specify different counties, right? I think you can drill down all the way to, any block. I'm just going to get all the blocks in the whole state. And you can see here, it goes over here in the filter. And it says, okay, well, what do you want here now? All right, well, surveys, I want the decennial census. And that's the only one that's available here because we asked for blocks, right? So the American Community Survey doesn't cover that. Okay, and it says, what do you want? Redistricting data to the summary file number 1. Well, we'll just want summary file number 1. The redistricting data is limited data. And then it says, okay, what year do you want? Okay, we want 2010. Okay, and then topics. Okay, well, I want populations and people and, counts, estimates, and projections. And then I'm just going to hit search here and see what we come up with. Okay. And so you can see here, it will list all of the different tables. Now, the Census Bureau aggregates this data in a lot of different ways, right? But it gives every table its own unique identifier, H10, through here. And so it'll view all, you can view all the tables. You can look at the maps. I'm just going to view all the tables here. And it's showing 10 per view here. You can change that to 25 or something. And P1 just shows the total population, which is what I'm interested in. So you can get a lot of different things here, but I'm just going to select this one. And note, that even though that's what I was looking for, it wasn't the first thing that showed up, right? So I had to go looking for it. And then it won't display this table on the internet because it's too big, because there's like I said, there's like 200,000 census blocks in Oklahoma. So I'm just going to have to download it. So I hit the download here, and it says download CSV. So I'm going to get a CSV file, right, which is a comma. It's a comma delimited form of data that you can open up in Microsoft Excel, which is what we're going to do. So I hit download. And you can see here, it's kind of, maybe it's kind of hard to see, but down in the corner here, it's working, and it is preparing my download, and it's only 5% done. So I sort of anticipated this. So I while we were before I recorded this video, I did this already. So I have this data downloaded. So I'm going to have to stop my share here, and I'm going to show you another screen, right? And so what you get is you actually get a folder that is a zip file. So you have to extract that, which I did here. And then you get, in this case, we got 3 files. So we got the metadata, and then we got the data, and then we got some notes, right? And so if we open up the metadata, it's basically going to explain, show what the data that we have means. And then if we open up the data itself, then we can look and see what the data is. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take you to the data so we can look at that, right? So here's the data. And what you can see here is it will list the header, right? So it says, we've got 4 columns here, 4 fields, and we got the GeoID, the name, and then the entry there, H001001, and then the error. And so the geography here, we have the GeoID for every block. So if you don't know what a GeoID is, go and watch my video on census geography. But basically, it lists every block. So starting with A, the first county, Adair County, right? So the first entry here is block 1000, block group 1, census tract 337.66, Adair County, Oklahoma. And it has that census tract has a population of 23. Okay, so you can scroll down here. There's thousands of these things, right? But it shows you the population. No, not every block has a population, and Adair County is mostly rural, so there are some blocks that are unpopulated. Now, I also want to just show you quickly the metadata, and so you can see here it basically explains what the data is that you have. So it's just a repeat of those headers that tells you what each of them mean. For this one, it's pretty easy to figure out, but in some other downloads, we may have, dozens of different fields. And so this helps you decode what this number here means, because every table of data, every field in that table has a unique identifier. And the Census Bureau does that so we can track exactly where we got the data from. All right. So I hope you all, follow that and were able to maybe replicate that as I explained it. So I'm going to go back now to. All right. So that was a demonstration that where we looked at searching for and downloading decennial census data. So I want to do another example here where we look at American Community Surveys, survey data. So I've cleared my search and I'm back at the point where I need to specify my filter. So for this example, for the geography, I'm going to look at the census tract level. That's the lowest level generally we can get for American Community Survey data. You can get some block group data, but we'll just stick with the tract level data, and we'll go to the state of Oklahoma. And I could get the whole state, but I'm just going to focus on Tulsa County for this example, and we'll say all census tracts within Tulsa County. Okay, great. And then let's for this example, let's take a look at the owner-renter, tenure data in the housing area. So for the survey, we're going to select American Community Survey, 5-year estimates, which are the longest ones. And that's the only one that's showing up right now. And then we'll pick detailed tables. And we almost always want detailed tables. And then that's added to our filter. Okay. And then the years, right? And it gives you a variety of years. I happen to know that they have 2021 here, but 2020 is the last one I think that they have the complete estimate. So let's just pick 2020. And then for topics here, we are going to be in the housing category and owner-renter household characteristics. So, generally housing is divided into information about the housing unit and information about the householder. And so here we have owner-renter tenure. That's what we're interested in. So we'll select that. I think that should work well. So let's go search. All right. And here we go. Number 4 down here, it's tenure, so, okay. Let's open that up. Okay, and so what you can see here is it will now display the data because it's not a big, gigantic file like when we were looking at all the census blocks in the entire state, right? So this is just Tulsa County. I think there's about 176 census tracts in Tulsa County. And you can see here that it's got the census tracts across the top, and then we have the total owner-occupied, renter-occupied. Sometimes it's helpful to transpose the data. So that's what I'm going to do here. And so I transpose, I'm just switching columns for rows and so forth. And then, so you look here and each census tract is listed, and here's the estimate for for total population and the owner occupied and the renter occupied households, right? So you can quickly also see that there is a margin of error here. So this is the American Community Survey. So when we're looking at the decennial census, it said null, right? There wasn't an error because they were essentially trying to get a complete count. But here you have a sample. So there's a margin of error reported. And, in some cases, it can be pretty large, right? So here, in Census Tract 2, 553 households, and that's plus or minus 75, right? So you have a pretty big range there. Now, you can export this data just like we did the decennial census data up here. So like, I can just take a zip file and, what do I want? Do I want, all that table and then download. And you saw me do that last time, so I'm not going to open up the table. You can do that on your own time. All right, so that's a good illustration of the American Community Survey, and I just want to do one last little example here before we close. And to do this one, I'm going to clear all the filters again. Clear that. There we go. All right. Go back to my advanced search starting page. All right, and so in this example, I think we've talked about how the census geography can change from one decennial census to another. Sometimes census tracts shrink and they get consolidated with others. Sometimes they grow and then they get divided, and you end up with more or less. And that can cause problems when you're doing longitudinal studies, when you're doing trend analysis and that sort of thing, because you may have to compensate for different boundaries. Generally, most of the time they have coincidental boundaries, but that's not really the point here. What I really want to talk about is that the surveys change too. And to illustrate that, one of the things that changes often is like race and ethnicity. So let's take a look at the decennial census data on race. And I'm going to select the geography here. There we go. Okay. And I think for this example, we'll just use county-wide data, and we'll select the state of Oklahoma, all the counties in Oklahoma. All right. And then for our surveys, we'll select the decennial census again, summary file number 1, and we'll go to years, and we'll start with the 2000. We'll go back to the 2000 census. And then we need a topic, and I'm going to pick race and ethnicity and just race and ethnicity in general. That should do it. Let's take a search here. All right. And so what you're going to find here is, so I got 231 tables, and depending on how you specify things, sometimes you can, you don't find exactly what you're looking for right away, because they parse this data in so many ways and aggregate it into all these different tables of data. And we can view up here. You can tell it, I want to view 50 tables at a time, so that I can scroll through them all. So that can often be a helpful thing. And here we are. We had to go down a little ways, but race, it's just a table, race. And usually, like these lower numbers, they tend to be sort of the most basic data. So I'm going to open up that, see what we got anyway, right? Okay, here you go. Okay, so we've got across the top here, we've got the different counties listed. And then you have the total population for each county, and then the population of one race alone. So these are people that identified as being, one race. And then they listed, okay, there were 10,000 white people, there were 38 Black or African American, there were 8,900 American Indians, Asians, etc. Right? And then they start listing population of 2 more races. So some people, the way this survey instrument was constructed, you could select more than one race. And so then they have to combine them in different ways, right? And population of 3 races, population of 4 and 5, it even goes all the way up to 6, right? So, the data here is not particularly clean, especially when you're looking at people of mixed race, right? Which is a significant portion, at least in this county, it was. So anyway, that's keep that in mind. And then I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to get rid of 2000, and we're going to change to the 2010 census year. And there we go. Okay. And I've got my results over here. And again, I could go searching through all of them, but I remember that the table last time was called P3. So I'm going to see if I can search for that. And well, it didn't like that, did it? Okay. Let's just try this again here. No filter selected. There we go. All right. You got to know how to hold your mouth just right. Okay. Now I'm going to try again here. Let's see if we can get P3 race for 2010. There you go. Right. And so what you see here is they've changed things, right? So instead of having the breakdown of all the different combinations of races, they've just consolidated this into 2 or more races, right? Which I think maybe more useful. It doesn't give you the granularity, and they may have a table somewhere else where they have that. But I happen to know in this instance that they changed the census form as well, so they weren't able to collect as much information about race. So anyway, just keep in mind when you're looking at census data across several periods of time that the geography might change and the survey may change, and maybe even some of the ways they calculate things may change. So just keep that in mind as we're searching for, downloading it, and using census data. All right, I think that about wraps it up for this time. So I'll see you at the next lesson.